Hello, this is Gary Bontrager with Gary Bontrager Consulting. I am super excited to have with me today Regi Miller, and he has joined our team as a coach, and he works a lot with sales systems as well as works with men in marriage relationships. Regi, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this point.
Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me on today. Well, it's been, of course, a journey. And through life, you learn from each business decision. But I'm in real estate right now. And as far as the sales end of it goes, it's been a learning experience also as far as fine tuning my business skills and having my goals and being able to do daily activities to reach those goals. So it wasn't until I had a clear path to my goal that I was able to um, precisely do my activities each day, and then to get the best results, and as well be able to track those. So the program I use now has made all the difference in my real estate journey, bringing my all of my business together and allowing me to have that focus.
Excellent. And I guess to back up a little bit before you did, or before you'd gotten into real estate, even you had built a landscaping business and obviously have done some sales there. What are some of the things you maybe learned from that business to where you're at now? And probably more than anything, you now recognize the things that you didn't do that you should have. But can you visit about that just a bit?
Yeah. In landscaping, I guess I was younger. I didn't have the experience that I do today. But as I look back, I have the same drive today that I had then. Um, I would say the same amount of energy. I may be a little more patient today than what I was then. But my personality is one where I love to please people, right? I love to solve their problems. And that's where real estate today, there's generally a problem. There's a people like or want to move, right? I'm not just helping them buy a house or sell a house. I'm helping them move. So there's their problem. How do they juggle? How do they sell their house and get into a new one? So, and even back into landscaping, I guess that was a question you asked. Is I don't know that it was a problem, but they didn't have the time to mow their grass or the knowledge of how to put in a retaining wall properly, seed sod, that type of thing. So um, I gained a lot of, I guess, pleasure of seeing the satisfaction or the smile on people's faces when I was done. Um, so I'm just trying to give that level of service that exceeded their expectations, gave me the drive to kind of move forward. So that was landscaping, and I think it spills over into today into real estate. And
Well, that's interesting. You kind of touched on something there that I talk about quite a bit, and that is the fact that people like yourself don't really ever lack motivation. They more or less lack direction. And I think that's probably a perfect way to summarize what you were just saying there. You had all the same motivations back then. You just didn't have the direction that you have now. And it's interesting to see how you're translating that to help others organize and be successful at sales.
yeah, so
Uh,
I was just sorry to interrupt you there.
no, go
I was
ahead.
just talking to a guy this morning about some issues that he was having in his business, and related it back to exactly what you were saying. There's I used to be the guy that I would go after everything. The early bird gets the worm, and I'd be grabbing every worm that was there and available. And I think that's what's changed with me today is being a little more patient, and not every worm is for me. Um, and so having some structure and knowing what my goal is, and keeping my eye on that.
Excellent. Uh, One of the things I know that you're doing for Gary Bontrager Consulting is just developing our own sales system. Uh, can you tell us a little bit about that, or what some of your thought processes are in that?
Yeah. Um, so seeing you grow this, and we've done a lot of stuff together, but um, seeing the excitement and the level of growth that you've had. I love to build things, and I've always been excited with what you had going there. So consulting, I think at this time in our lives makes a lot of sense. The amount of success or failures that we've had in business, I guess allows us to give some direction to others, right? Um, Along with, I know you have a coach, I have another coach, and I think that's something that every business person needs, even if you're not in business. Just having somebody that keeps you accountable in where you want to go, someone that you can just bounce things off of. And I think anybody that wants to grow has a coach beside them um, to help them get there.
And really, that's I like to look at that as though that's just an investment in oneself. We so often invest in other things, real estate and what have you, is what we think of. But the best investment we can make is investing in ourselves. And that's, I guess, how I'd summarize what you're saying there. And it's something that we continue to do. I think
Right.
it's interesting, too, that you brought up the fact that we've had some successes, but we've also had some failures. And I was just having a conversation this morning with somebody else that there's a lot of folks that do coaching and they do a great job and meet a lot of needs of different folks out there. But that's probably one thing that happens. It seems kind of maybe a bit crazy to say that I'm old, but there's some experiences. I sometimes feel like I've almost lived 2 lifetimes with some of the things I've gone through. And I know can say the same. So
Yeah. Well, I think you've been picking up a lot of worms, right? And sometimes they're failures. We should have left them lay, but we learn from it. And I think as you're helping people and I'm helping people, that we can share some of those experiences so that they don't pick up the same. I remember younger when somebody told me not to pick it up, and I did. When somebody told me no in the past, even though it was a closed door for me, I would figure out how to open it. And I can share a failure that I should have never opened it, but I learned from it. I learned dearly.
well, a couple of things there probably was it was a challenge.
Yes.
And sometimes that's really what motivates us is just the challenge in front of us. And then the other side of that is I'm guessing that advice that you'd received was free. And it seems
Very true.
like
Yep.
it seems like there's always a little different reaction when it's free advice. But when somebody pays for it, there's just that transformation, and that's where it comes back to that
Mm-hmm.
investment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I paid for it.
just not up front.
After the fact. Yes, it would have saved me a lot of money to pay him.
Right. But that was a little bit of a concept that wasn't very common either 25 years ago. So,
No, you're absolutely right.
one of the things that I wanted to visit about a little bit is as a realtor, I know you work in a large organization. And so there's multiple people in the organization. Do you find that challenging, beneficial? One reason I ask that is because often I tell people it's better to be a small part of something really big than a big part of something really small. That's not always true depending on the business, but do you have some
Yeah.
comment about that?
Well, in real estate, I am a part of one of the largest real estate companies here in the Fort Wayne area. Um, we're all our own, I guess, contractors here in the office, I guess you might say. We're not a payroll of the company. So with that being said, even though we're in direct competition with everyone, we're still, I can still walk down the hall at any time and talk to another professional and ask for advice. Feed off of that, feed off of their sales. But I think that's about as far as I can go there. I'm about ready to lead into the sales part of it. But yeah, as far as working in a larger company here, yeah, I feed off of that energy. There's a lot of agents that work out of their home. I like to come into the office dressed the part, and I expect the people that are on my team to do the same, and um, be the professional that we're supposed to be.
Basically, you want to fit the culture, or your culture is to be part of a high-paced team that represents well and works together as a team to get the best results. And it's one of those small things you can do to make a difference over maybe another competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know you worked with different CRMs and sale programs in the past, and you touched on what you're doing currently. What are some of the important things you've learned working within those systems or having systems in sales?
Yeah. So I'll back up to landscaping, and what I want to touch on is a database. Um, I heard it said, don't know where I heard it, and maybe this isn't true for every business, but if you don't have a database, you don't have a business. I had my lawn care, I had my contractors that I put lawns in for, that would build spec homes, that type of thing. But I really didn't have a database that nurtured relationships every month, whether it was through mailers or just stopping by and seeing them, taking them to lunch, bringing them donuts for breakfast, that type of thing. So getting into real estate, and the program that I use now for real estate, like I said before, has I plug in my goal, and then I back it out into daily activities. So kind of comes back to, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So just knowing what my goal is, what I need to do each day, and then taking that, I guess you'd call it massive action, right? Just taking that action every day, so that you can conquer that goal at the end of the year. So having my CRM has allowed me to see all of my clients, make notes on them as I take them to lunch, what they've said, as I give them, make calls, and just I try to keep my calls brief. However, my database is a database of relationships. So if they want to talk, I'll listen. But essentially, I have a goal in that conversation. Listen to them, see how they're doing, see what I can do for them, and before I hang up, just remind them that I'm never too busy for the referral. And usually it ends with a little chuckle, and they say, "Yeah, Reg, we got you." But I run my business solely on referral, and it's because of my CRM, that my marketing budget is pretty low. It's my time. I'm out calling my clients, asking for referrals, and I tell them, listen, the ones that are buying or selling, I'm concentrating on your transaction, and through this transaction, if you can give me 2 referrals, that helps me to concentrate on buying or selling a house for you. And so they get that, and it's their understanding of that, and it works. People like to help people, and so the CRM has given me the database as far as the focus. It also helps me with my numbers, tracking my activities. It shows me if I make 15 calls in a week, then how many referrals did I get, and translating that to the end of the month, did I reach my goal every week, and how many referrals did I get, how many of those referrals turned into sales, and then I know what my ratios are, I know what my average sales costs are. At the end of the year, it's just it's easy to see exactly what you've done and what you need to do next year, to reach your next goal.
That's very interesting. I am amazed at how many companies I sit down with, and they spend just tens of thousands on mail, like just mass mail campaigns, all kinds of different marketing, and they do this every year. And there are some that spend more than they would on a salesperson, but they do not track a single client, and they're trying to generate new leads every year. And they get some, they get some repeat business, but they're giving up the whole referral side, and they're giving up really even the chances a lot of times of having a repeat client, which is already an established relationship. So
yeah, I'll share a quick story. I had every Thanksgiving, I give out pies to all of my clients that have bought or sold with me in the last forever, right? And I worked with a vendor that sold the pies, and so I brought all of my clients to his establishment to pick up the pie. it was a way for me to pitch his business while I was giving away a pie. But point of my story is we did a video at his establishment saying hi to everyone and what was going to happen and how they were going to pick up their pie. I sent it off to my business coach and he said, Reg, great video, but you forgot to ask for a referral at the end of the video. And I was like, you're right. That was the value of my coach. I went back to him and I said, sorry, Doug, I got to reshoot this with you. And so we did. And at the end of the video, asked for their referral in a nice way. I'm not asking for anything that they don't want to give me, but the importance of a coach, the importance of staying on task.
Yep, very good. Shifting gears a little bit, who's a good candidate for a program or to work with you?
Somebody that wants to grow, right? Somebody with energy, wants to be the best in their area. I think a lot of people know how to do a lot of things, but the best usually show up, right? And there's a lot of agents in Fort Wayne that can sell a house, but I'm finding that in our organization, a lot of agents in here have coaches, and we're known in Fort Wayne for being the most professional, having the most professional agents. We dress the part, we come into the office, that type of thing. So, yeah. In answer to your question, I think everyone can benefit from a coach, but we're looking for those people who want to go to the next level. And when they get to the next level, there's another level, right? It's a constant stair step. So once you think you've arrived, you set new goals and you haven't arrived, and that's life.
Well, and you're talking about culture a lot too, and sometimes I think it's just helpful to have that outside perspective on how you're going to create that culture, because that's not as easy done when you're in the day-to-day grind if you don't have that extra assistance from a third perspective, maybe. So
right, absolutely, yep.
Transition a little bit out of that. I know you also do a little bit and have done some coaching with men in marriage relationships, and not necessarily couples, just men. Can you talk about that experience just a little bit? Maybe some successes. It's just, I know it's a tough topic because it can be so personal, and it typically can paint somebody to look bad. And it's not really the intent. I mean, what you just come out of with a sales, what you just talked about in sales and wanting to be the best, I think there again, and when it comes to marriages, it's back to the same thing. We've got one chance at living life, so why don't we make it the best we can?
Yeah. Man, a lot of stuff come to mind when you ask that question. For me, I would say it started, I've always been in personal growth, right?
Right.
Growing up listening to, Dad always had Zig Ziglar going on a cassette, or Dale Carnegie, that type of thing. But I want to say it was 2017. I was on my way back from Iowa, and I was listening to Think and Grow Rich, and something just plugged in, and I set some serious goals of where I wanted to be, and that was 4 years ago now. Anyways, through that process, I was in a meeting here at the office, and I met a guy who I didn't realize that he was on a similar journey, and with his help, I he shared a couple books with me, and one of them was No More Mr. Nice Guy, and what that helped me to realize is that I am a pleaser. I love to please people, but with that, I realized I frustrate people at the same time by not being honest. And transparent, and there's a fine line there, right? You don't just want to tell somebody honestly what you think of them, but you can do it. I just found that if I'm honest with people right up front, it makes things so much easier, and that translates over into being a man, being decisive, and especially with my wife, it's helped our marriage so much that being in control of my environment, allowing giving her the respect, giving her love, but being decisive. So in real estate, it's amazing how often I end up talking about marriage. Had the opportunity, and this will relate back to coaching, to share with several different men that through the course of selling their home, a divorce situation that they didn't want, I was able to help them with some of the things that I've done in life that other men have helped me with, and then sharing my experience and how my wife responded or my clients responded. The interesting thing I took away from that was that they didn't do anything about it. And I couldn't quite understand that. And Gary, I think it was you that said it to me, is like, Reg, the difference is they have nothing up front, that the value that you gave them, they don't see the value because they haven't put anything up, or maybe they're just not hungry enough. But it comes back to, man, when you pay for something and you've got something there, I'm giving you something and I want something in return. And when you give something in return, they put it into action. So I don't know if I was disappointed because it's their life, but it was interesting to find that I felt like I was giving them gold, because when I received it, it worked for me and I was amazed. When I shared it with somebody else, they said, "Oh, that's cool," and then didn't implement it.
But you were also in that place in life where you were looking for that information, wanting that change. And I think it comes back to the coaching relationship that we can have.
Yeah.
When we have that coach in our life, it means, again, we're investing. So something's going to probably, we want a return on our investment, and it's going to change how we approach that. And probably those men just didn't, they were not at the stage of life yet where it mattered enough. You could understand it. You had the vision with what you work with and what you do, that this would help, but they just weren't ready for that.
Well, and I think it comes back to the last question of, who is this coaching program good for? Well, it's those that really want it, right? Some people just
Right.
want to talk about it. Some people think, yeah, that'd be great to get there, but they get in their own way, right?
Right. And that's kind of interesting. Is I have an associate I work with, and I know we're talking about, a potential client. And the conversation was, well, if we charge X, they're not going to do it. And I'm like, well, then we need to charge that, because they want to get together and talk. They don't want to change. And that's kind of that's where it gets difficult.
So one of my coaches, when I was talking about growing my team, he said, the first step you need is an executive assistant. And I said, well, I'm not quite sure I can afford that yet. And he said, well, you need, when you hire that person, they're going to make their position affordable. And so you can't not afford to make that move, is what he was saying.
Right. This is kind of an interesting transition a little bit. Next thing I want to bring up here, a question here. I know, relationships are important to both of us, and they're really, the foundation of any success that any one person has is relationships. You talked about that in business a little bit, especially in the sales, because that's kind of that is your focus. But you also then talk about it in your personal life. What are some thoughts on that?
Yeah. So coming back to the database, my database is a list of names of people that I've worked with and their relationships, right? So that's my goal, is just to continue to nurture those relationships on every year. So I have a bullseye, and I have an A+ client, I have an A client, a B client, C client, and to a D, which is, those are the ones you want to delete. And I nurture those relationships according to the amount of referrals that I get from those people. So, and some of them, they don't give me referrals, but I have a great relationship with them. They're a good friend of mine.
Right.
So yeah, relationships are super important. And in today's world, we have social media. Use it. I'm one that I don't think anybody cares what I'm doing in my personal life. So I've gotten some help from social media, but it's not the same. Really, people like to know what the heck you're doing, right? They like to see
Right.
that. Um, well, for me, I like to landscape on weekends, right? I still have that little bug
Right.
that I do. So, but I don't. I don't take pictures, and I should.
Yeah. Your property
So that's
shows
an
that.
easy way to continue nurturing relationships. Even though you're not talking to people, you can touch 100 people, 100 of your friends on Facebook so quick, by posting something weird. Um,
So we can find you out on Facebook and Instagram.
um, I'm working on it, Gary. So we're all good at certain things, and I guess I'm good at hiding. But
Well,
that is a weakness of mine. So if you can't do it, coach it. So there you go.
you're going to coach that they need to use it at least, not how to use it, right? Well,
Right.
you've got a beautiful property back there, and obviously your landscaping skills are still intact. So,
Thanks.
what's taken you down a path? If you can look back over your life a little bit, where you recognized personal growth was important and investing in oneself. I understand you were around it growing up some, but obviously at some point it had to become personal.
Yeah, you did. You touched on. I was fortunate enough to have mom and dad always in personal growth. Um, they were. I remember growing up being in multi-level marketing, and so we'd go to hotels and be at conferences, and there was often a lot of highly motivated people. Right? They were going after their goals, and um, but personal growth, it never ends. Right? I've had moments where um, I was without a coach, and I found myself slipping back. So you kind of get back into those lazy habits, I guess you might say. Um, and that just comes back to the natural human tendencies of ultimately your brain is trying to keep you alive, and that's about all it's trying to do. So it doesn't care if you reach your goals or not. So we need to constantly stay sharp, and that's where, like I said, with that Think and Grow Rich book, led into The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Um, I started getting my butt out of bed. I also was not a big reader, and I have a nice library of books. It's I guess it's staying motivated, and you have to want it, right? And we didn't really touch on that yet. Is what gets you out of bed? What's your why? Uh, I guess we did touch on it when you said who is the person that needs a coach. It's that person with a big why, and they know what their why is, and then we create a system around that, um, whether it's a personal growth system or it's the eating the elephant thing. But yeah, I think you've got to. Not everybody can get up and go to the gym, but I think the first thing you do, getting out of bed in the morning, is super important, right? Where your mind's at, because again, your brain just wants to keep you alive. You got to tell that brain what the heck's going to happen today, and how it's going to happen, and what kind of mood you're going to be in, and carry that energy throughout the day. So for me, it's the gym, and at the gym, I don't listen to music. I listen to a YouTube something or a podcast something, um, and and then of course I think again, everybody needs a coach in their life, um, just to help them stay accountable, and stay on their goal.
I'm going to do a little bit of a plug on this one. Really, I teach on this quite a bit, but our mind and different studies will probably give some variation of this, but they really try to shut our body down at about 40%. So our mind really is what tells us, this is what we're going to do if we don't take control of it. And it's going to play it extremely safe. And so we talk about that a lot of times. We get cold, and so now we're going to go in. But could we stay there 10 more minutes? We have shin splints. Don't think we can run. Well, we can run if we choose to, more than likely, unless the bone is sticking out of the side of our skin, we can still move. There's just a lot of things where our mind will shut us down. And I think that's That's probably the one evolution for myself is just start continually recognizing how much more capacity I have than what I even was aware of. And it takes us to a new level all the time. And I know I've touched on this with others too, and probably even in other podcasts, but it even takes us to where often, well, two things came up. One, you mentioned culture. We created a culture for our own life. We created in our businesses, and we see those when we work with clients. And then also, it changes our circle of friends a lot of times. We start to visit with, I mean, we start to hang around different people because we're wanting different things.
Yeah, and you become like those that you're
Yes.
around, right? And sometimes your friends change.
Yep. Birds of a feather flock together. So that's just kind of a
That's right.
common one. I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here. What do you like to do for fun?
Good question. Golf is the first thing that comes to mind, and that takes a lot of time. So, and you know this, but I just recently got my pilot's license, and so that is kind of my next venture. I like to get up when I can and go fly around. So it's kind of given me some freedom. So looking forward to doing more of that.
Right.
And then of course on weekends I seem to just be around the house and taking care of the landscape and doing little projects here and there. So it kind of sounds boring. But
Not really. I think it's interesting because I just know what went into you becoming a pilot. I think it's just the fact that it was another challenge out there, and yet you could do it as a
yes,
hobby, and it maybe would translate to something different someday. But
yeah, very true.
it was just another level of achievement or something to challenge yourself. So
That yeah, and that is true. As I was looking back at my goals, actually it was my affirmations that um, I had looked back on, and that was one of them that I told myself that I'm going to get my pilot's license this year. So train the brain there, I guess, and I got it done.
there you go. Control that mind, you can accomplish it. Anything you want to you just want to share with the audience? Any thoughts?
Um, yeah, I think what I touched on as far as knowing what your why is, and then starting your day off um, in that positive, telling your brain exactly what the day or your body how you're going to be, and then across the board, just when I learned to control my emotion, that nobody makes me happy, nobody makes me mad, you know, it translates into traffic, it translates into everything. But um, there's being in control of your day. I the most I like to control my calendar as far as the morning to noon. Afternoon is a little more flexible for me, but that's my most productive part of the day. And then loving where you're at, right? Any
Right.
any moment that you're in, um, having perspective um, of how great of a country we live in, even though it seems like you know it seems like we're upside down sometimes. So
Right.
when you really gain perspective of how great we have it, um, stay in that mindset, loving where you're at now, and when you find that you're feeling down, which is the normal thing that your brain sometimes where it wants to go, is gaining that perspective. Hey, I do have a great life.
Right.
Um, got a shirt on my back and I'm above ground.
Right. So much of life is what happens to us. And I know it's something I've learned in the last few years, just through some different situations I've been through. I still have decisions I can make. It's exactly what you said. We choose if we want to be happy. We choose how we respond to the guy that cut us off in traffic.
Yep.
Uh,
Where
life,
we're at today is all because of choices.
right. Life
But
is 100% how we react to what happens to us, not what happens to us.
yeah, yeah, and that is a whole nother can of worms. But that's where I'm um, trying to get out of my own way. Right, where I want to go is I can envision that, right, and so how do I become that person that is living that lifestyle. So we look back at the choices that we've made, and every day you get up and you do the same thing. Well, you're going to kind of get the same result. So how do I get out of my own way,
Right.
and become that person that is living that life in the future that I want to live?
Yeah, no.
I'm still a student in that.
Sure. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate you coming on here, Regi, and doing this podcast and just sharing a lot of what you've maybe learned and went through over the years. Really excited to be working with you in a coaching capacity going forward. I know that you're going to be a huge addition to clients and help them find a lot of success. And so with that, you have a good day, and we'll visit again another time.
Super. Thanks for having me, Gary.